everybody, and welcome back to Ravinheart Rendition Shop Time. And we are talking with Jim Heavey today. Hi, Jim. How you doing?
Hey, I'm just great. How are you?
Good. It's you're not too far from me, actually.
I'm not. I'm not. I didn't realize that every once in a while you kind of think about it, and it's really not that far. In fact, that show that the Woodworking Shows does in Milwaukee is kind of a nice little rendezvous spot. It's really not a long distance for either one of us.
Yeah, no, it's just down the road from me and just up the road from you.
Yep,
So,
exactly. Exactly.
well, Jim, let's I guess for people who may not know you, Jim Heavey is with Wood Magazine.
Hmm.
And you do some traveling with the woodworking shows, and now there's with through Wood Magazine there's the Weekend with Wood, and those are the things that I know about the most. Now I know I come to see you every time when you're down in the Milwaukee Woodworking Show, but I've been seeing stuff about you in Wood Magazine long before I've been going to those shows. So how did you get up and doing stuff with Wood Magazine and
It was like that classic thing of being in the right place at the right time. I uh, I was a fireman for a long time, and I had a side business of doing remodeling. So I did an awful lot of remodeling, small little jobs, and that kind of stuff. And the company called Skill, first before Bosch ever bought them, came up with a demonstrator program. And for some reason, they got my name. A guy backs down the driveway, and he said, can I talk to you about being a demonstrator with us? And I had no idea what he was talking about. So he said, show me some of the things you've done. So we just showed him some of the furniture in the house. And he said, okay, is your garage open? And I said, sure. And he unloaded a huge truck with all kinds of Skill tools. So I did shows at a place called Builder Square for
oh, sure.
people that are 100 years old or older. And they went from that to Builder Square 2 and all that stuff. And the gist of it is, then Bosch bought them, and we went from doing local shows to national shows. So I was doing a national show for Bosch, and some of the people from Wood came over wanting to see something else in the booth and came and talked to me just to kind of kill some time. And we kind of struck it off well. And they called about a month later because the guy that they had doing something for them for a while had a medical problem. And they said, would you mind working for us in Atlanta for the weekend? And that was like 2 weeks away. So I did. And then they kept calling and calling. And finally, it just evolved into something that I've stayed with. So it's just been perfect. I couldn't have asked for anything better. They're an awesome group of people to work for. It made it really easy for me. And so now I think the first year we did these occasional kind of things and did things for Tool Crib of the North. If you know those guys from a long time ago, they were in Fargo and in oh God, a couple other places up there, and I did little presentations for them at their show, and talking about Wood Magazine and here's what we do, and giving away free magazines and all that kind of stuff. And then one of the salesmen from Wood got a deal going with Sears stores,
Oh, sure.
and I did 20 weekends with the Sears stores in '99, and we went around to 20 stores throughout the country, and they kind of regionalized them, where they took 2 or 3 stores, and they said, okay, here's the one we're going to do. And we did a presentation for 2 hours, live presentation for 2 hours on a Saturday morning from 8 to 10 before the stores open. So in these big mall stores, and it was a blast.
Oh, cool.
So we used the key was you had to use their tools. And so I was in the hardware department, and they loved it because they sold a ton of stuff. And surprisingly, I guess, it wasn't mainly the tools that they sold that they were trying to hype. It was my folding rule and the kind of pencils I used and all that stuff. So people coming back with that. So, but it turned out to be a lot of fun. And from there, then they decided that worked so well that maybe we would try going to the woodworking shows, which I had been doing just a few of, and started them with the magazine. And then we got into a much closer relationship with them over the last, maybe 10 years or so, to a point where we do things cooperatively quite a bit. So we kind of advertise the shows in our magazine, and they use me as the magazine does to represent them at the woodworking shows, because that's pretty much now the only woodworking show group that does their number of shows throughout the country. There used to be a few,
Yeah.
and now they're down to just this one. So that's kind of how I got into that spot, and I'm always feel like I'm hanging on by my fingernails, but they seem to like me for some reason, and we're signed up again for this coming year. So I'm looking forward to a real good season again.
Well, that's great. We we look forward to seeing you back up here um, in Milwaukee again. But every time I go down, it's always you have a different spin on when you look at it. I think one of the best ones I seen was uh, your presentation where you said, okay, you do this, you do all these things and all this, and then somebody says, oh, I love it so much, but oh, look what I goofed up here. And the best part was just shut up. If they don't see
Yep,
it,
yep.
shut up.
I had people in my class every once in a while. And now I try and teach different things and little tricks and all that kind of stuff. And occasionally I'll bring something in and show them where this part is messed up. And it's been fun. It's been fun because over the time I've had people from the audience say, "Hey, shut up." When I was trying, I said, "No, no, no. If you're explaining to somebody, it's okay. But it's a universal. I don't talk to many woodworkers all who don't right away tell me that I worked really hard on this. I made a couple mistakes. I did this. I did this. I did this. And then my goal in all of that was just to try to get them to a point where they'd be comfortable knowing that everybody makes mistakes. The best woodworkers in the world, the best artists in the world, everybody makes mistakes. The true artist knows how to cover them up. They just don't talk about them as much. And it's I don't think, other than a few people, I don't think I've ever found a boastful woodworker. There's a few that can't wait to tell you how much more they know than you know, and I get over that.
Yeah.
But the majority of those people feel it's almost like their soul sitting out in front, and they have to apologize for part of it. And I like to get them past that as best I can, knowing that everybody's going to make mistakes. The next one you make will be even better. But get over this idea about feeling so insecure about something and immediately pointing out those things. So my thing was just shut up. And it actually worked out pretty well.
Yeah, and it's great to go to some of the talks that you've had. I mean, you've done ones on finishing, on tips for home remodeling, on tips for woodworking, glue ups. I mean, I've seen quite a few of the ones that you did down there, and it's always a treat to see you talk because you interact with the audience in a way that it's fun to learn something, even if some people don't like to be taught something, and even the people who don't like being taught have a good time, and they might learn something.
I just don't think there's anything. I like to tell people that I take what I do very seriously, but I don't take myself very seriously. And I think that everybody should feel comfortable knowing that it's a big camaraderie. Everybody's the same. We all do the same things. We have the same issues. We make the same mistakes. Everybody wants a bigger shop, and then they screw it up by putting too much crap in it. With the real big shop.
Yep.
And so everybody's about the same. The idea is to enjoy what you do, because 99% of the people I talk to are not making this a business. No. This is what I would consider my idea is legacy gifts. Mm-hmm. They're meant for family and friends and around your house and stuff. So to get so wound up over it, or to feel that you're being criticized silently by the person that's getting that thing, is just not ever the case. Those people are excited to get them. They take that as a big thank you. I'm working right now. I'd be embarrassed to take you into my shop because the magazine just had this thing where they said, in one word, describe your shop. So I just put overbooked because that's, and so I'm making a bedroom set for my youngest and his wife. And so the place is a madhouse. There's just stuff everywhere. And before I started talking to you, I'm out in the barn shooting lacquer on some big panels, to finish the raised panels before they go into the rails and stiles and stuff. Sure. So everybody is doing something like that in one form or the other. They're making toys for the grandkids. They're making furniture for their wife or something. And I like the shows because I think if we can bring it down to that level and have some fun with it, nobody feels uncomfortable. They can always ask the question because they know I'm not going to give them a hard time about it. So, and this year I'm going to do cabinet construction because I haven't done that in, 10 years, maybe more. So we'll just talk about building standard cabinets and doors and drawers. Those will be my 3 presentations. So again, all just tips and techniques and fun and that kind of stuff, and almost for sure a sign or two of a mistake we'll bring with.
Well, the cabinet part will work out great because right about the time that the shows come through is about the time I have to start some cabinet stuff. So that'll work out perfect for me. Yep. Glad we could schedule that well.
Good. And I think we're there, and I was looking for my email before I started talking to you, and I can't find it, from Bryce. he sent me kind of an off the record kind of a thing for the tentative shows for starting in the winter, starting in Baltimore, January early. We're going to do, they changed now, where when he bought the shows last year, it was a little too late to do the fall series.
Okay.
So we got in a lot of trouble over that. People felt that they'd been abandoned and all that stuff, and they really hadn't been. It's just that the poor guy needed to kind of get his act in gear. So we're going to do, I think, at least five shows starting in October, and then we'll be off for the Thanksgiving, Christmassy kind of thing, and then start in January. And I thought that when I saw Milwaukee, it seemed to me that it was in February-ish.
Yeah, it's usually February.
Usually January, February kind of thing. And I know we've done it. I remember the one time we did it on Super Bowl weekend. And if I remember right, this was quite a few years ago. The Packers were out of it in, I think, week 3. And no one showed up for that thing, in spite of the fact that the Packers were not in it. Nobody was around. It was Super Bowl weekend. And all we did was throw football in the building for Saturday and Sunday, because pregame starts, I think, sometime on Thursday, and then the game on Sunday, and nobody came on Saturday. We just played all day.
Wow. Yeah, I remember going down last year, and it was up until last year, it had seemed like a lot of the educational part kind of almost dropped off of some of it. And you were there, and maybe one other person prior to that. It just seemed to slow down. And last year, there was Andy Chidwick, there was you. I don't recall the names, but I mean, there.
Yeah, we had Raleigh Johnson from Fine was there last year.
The crazy Canadian.
Crazy Canadian.
Who is hilarious.
It's got a screw loose. Just again, a kind of an aside kind of thing. A couple of years ago, he'd been doing this for quite a long time. A couple of years ago, he came to me and he was talking, and he said, I'm out of here. I can't do this anymore. So I said, what's up? And he said, I just can't do it. He said, it's gotten to be a drain. I don't like it anymore. I'm just not happy anymore. So anyway, he goes and I think it was over Christmas or something, or the early spring, talking to his wife, and she kind of gave him an ultimatum. She said, either quit or change your attitude, because you can't do both. And a couple of years ago, and they called me and he said, I'm back. And I said, I'm glad to see you, because he was fun. He just said, I've decided to change what I do. I'm going to have fun. I'm hoping that I'm not going to be taken as a buffoon, because the stuff, he's got a lot of patents. He's a very, very bright man. But he just, he likes to do stupid stuff. And since he started doing that, his business has never been better. He sold more than he ever sold. His son has now just kind of taken over. He'll go back to the booth, and his son will say, Dad, I got it. You can go do something else, if you want to. So it's a totally different approach to something. And again, I think that idea of this isn't what people do as a business. This is what they do as an avocation or as a love or whatever. He's kind of adopted that philosophy to just enjoy yourself, be silly, and he's nuts. I was there one day and before the show started, and he said, you got to watch this. So he was doing a little thing with a lathe, and Bradley McAllister, who's one of the turning guys that we've had at the show, is now, and I think he's coming back this coming year too. Anyway, they set up his lathe and they glued this big hunk of wood to a faceplate. And the first part of it was gluing this hunk of wood there, and of course they slopped glue all over it. And Crazy Canadian is telling everybody, that we don't have to worry about that, and he uses just his sleeve from his shirt to wipe the glue off. And he said this is how they do it in Canada. So anyway, they stop the thing, and then he screws his sleeve to the faceplate on the side. Screw. And I said, what are you doing? And he said, we're going to start the lathe. His son had lightly ripped his shirt from behind. It's going to pull my sleeve off. And he said, I'm just going to tell him the glue sticks really well, because Type Bomb was one of his sponsors. So anyway, I said, you really want to do that? Oh, yeah. So anyway, they do the thing, and they turn on the lathe, and of course, the first rotation or two takes this thing and whips it off his arm. And he's talking about how the glue really sticks, and you got to be a little bit careful when you're doing it. Well, after he got done, he walked away, and he said, I can't, my heart is going to beat out of my chest. And I said, why is that? And he said, that thing could have torn my hand off. And I said, we talked about this, and you decided to still do it. He said, I really thought I could stop that. He said, it was only going about 100 RPM. And I said, oh, yeah, very good. So he's just a nice guy, and I think you'll find the reason that a lot of this stuff was back this last year is because the new guy, Bryce Bierman, who bought this show, is really into education. That's his thing.
Yeah.
So when he got the show last fall, last fall, he called me right away and he said, I officially bought the show. I want you to teach for me. And he said the other thing that didn't happen before is he said, you teach anything you want, anytime you want, do whatever you want. He said, you're the educator. I don't care what you do.
Oh, great.
And he called everybody and told the same thing. So his show has exploded because now you have individual woodworking clubs like to teach, and we've got people that are retailers kind of doing their thing, to kind of sell their tools, and then just unabashed educators that love doing this stuff. I don't know if Sellers was there too.
Yeah, I think he was.
Sellers. He's another guy that's just interesting. Just his accent to start with, but very interesting, man. And I think what it does is it gives somebody that comes to the show. I think this one year, or a show, we had over 100 educational opportunities in the 3 days. So you can't even see them all.
No.
So the cool part was that people could go watch hand tools that Sellers was doing, or they could watch power tools that somebody else was doing, and they really gave everybody something to kind of draw them to the show. And the hope is that they'll come back because the attendance was up this last year again.
Yeah.
So we're hoping it stays that way because the shows used to draw between 10 and 12,000 on a weekend. Bad weekend was in the 6,000 or so, and now we routinely draw about 7 or so. So they're getting there. They're better than they were, and they're not quite as good as they've been. So we're kind of hoping that this new format, the new owner, will make a difference. And I think people that meet him, he's there at every show. Real young guy. He's 32, 33 or so. Yeah, he's just a bit older than my youngest. So scary. But the idea is he's got this love of the shows that bring everybody in. It's really funny because the vendors feel that this kid could dump on them, and they would say, "Oh, he probably just didn't have a chance to get to the bathroom."
Oh wow!
It's really nice, and I think that attitude shows. So when you come to the show, you see a lot of light spirit. It's a brighter feeling. With some of our previous owners, it got to be a little bit dark.
Yeah,
for a while.
It was this last year when I went. It was more like the shows I remembered going to a long time ago, where there were seminars, there was enough to go on, and everybody at the show had that. I mean, not even just the educators, but some of the people that just had a booth that was selling something, and that's all. They had the attitude carried to everybody, which then in turn goes to the people attending the show as well. I mean, you mentioned clubs. I know they have a couple Milwaukee clubs that go to the showdown there, and the Green Bay club that I'm actually one of the board members on the Green Bay club, and we look forward to that show because you have so many people come to talk. Oh, what club are you? And you end up, oh, we're in Green Bay. Well, I came down from Green Bay for this. I didn't even know we had a woodworking club. And we're like, well, yeah, here's the thing. Come and visit anytime.
And that's what's been great because I think a lot of these clubs, because I usually ask, they have a sign up out there. So how'd you guys do? And a lot of times I'll say, we did really well. Got a whole bunch of new people that plan on coming and stuff because they never knew we existed.
Yep.
And I will tell people when I talk to them, somebody will say, we go to a city, be in Baltimore, and somebody will say, I don't know where to find good hardwood or something. And I'll say, I have to admit, I'm not from here, but I'll tell you what, call your local woodworking club.
Yep.
Go and those guys have secret stashes. They have their guys. They have all this stuff. It's a great resource. And I think the more clubs that come realize that they get as much out of the show as the people that come to the show get seeing them.
Oh yeah.
So I think that's good that you guys come down.
Yeah, it's great. Plus, you're sitting there talking about woodworking to people all day. Oh, that's too bad. Yeah,
that's why I keep saying they pay me to talk. There couldn't be a better thing, and I love it. I love what I do, and it's kind of I enjoy meeting people, and I've made a lot of good friends and stuff. So it's kind of fun. Then you have dinner someplace, and you look to your left, and you see a guy over there that sent you a drink. Because he just wanted to talk,
cool.
And it's cool. It's really cool.
Well, I had a chance to talk with Andy Chidwick, and he actually on his sawdust tour he stopped at the shop here. And it was nice to talk to him, and it's same thing, same attitude about the change in the show, and really happy it is the way it is, and so are us visitors to the show.
Yeah, he's going to be back.
Good.
He'll be back this coming year. In fact, I think anyway, that we're trying to get him to come to our weekend with wood this year. So, we do that thing once a year now, our weekend there, and he has a unique approach to things. He's a little bit more free form,
Yes.
kind of a guy, rather than everything done on a plumb and square kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the magazine has approached him. That's what I'm hearing anyway. Approached him to try and do our weekend with wood, which would be kind of cool if we can work that out.
Well, that'd be great. No, I didn't have a chance to visit the weekend with Wood this year. We had a pre-planned trip to Jamaica, and I think I liked sitting on the beach. So
Yeah, I think we may have said that Des Moines has a really small beach. It's not the same.
no, not quite the same as a Jamaican beach. But so now I wish I would have been able to make it this year, and I hope to make it next year. But so how did it go? I heard a lot of good things on a couple other podcasts. I think Matt Vanderlist was down there for a while, and
Yeah, last.
yeah, he had fun. Matt usually has
His
fun.
arm was sore from holding his webcam the whole time. No, actually, we did well. It was set up kind of at the last minute. It was not quite the last minute to start the planning, but our magazine is printed a couple of months or a couple of issues in advance, so it took a while to actually get this in by the time people saw it. So we had we only could handle 200. The building is not large enough to do any more than that.
Okay.
So we wound up with 172, which was just fine, which meant every class was less than 25, and some of them were like 15. So it was really kind of a hands-on thing. We used the building in Des Moines, so we used our production shop, our photo studio, our spray booths, our classroom things and everything right in our offices. And then for the wives that came in early, my wife came in this time a little bit early, and a couple other people did. They took them on the Better Homes and Gardens tour, so they got to see the test kitchens and the outdoor gardens and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, nice.
It was a great weekend. I didn't hear from anybody that had a complaint. There was only one guy that I talked to that said, I wish that there had been some kind of a shuttle between the hotels and getting to our offices. But we kind of talked about that a little bit, and it just was so hard to try and organize something like that when maybe only one or two people would do it. So, but otherwise, they were sitting outside 2 hours before the gates opened on Friday. I think we opened the doors about 45 minutes or an hour or so before in each show, and then we had a big commons area, and there was coffee and rolls and all that kind of stuff. So all of these guys actually spent more time laughing and talking with each other for that time, and they said that was probably one of the best things they met. I think we had, and don't hold me to this, but I thought we had 25 states represented.
Oh wow!
That came to this, so that's pretty cool.
Nice.
Nice. The people there had 8 opportunities for education. There were 8 classes they could take, 2 hours each over the 3 days, 3 on Friday, 3 Saturday, and 2 Sunday. We fed them for early when they first came in. We fed them lunch, and then we surprised everybody by taking them all out to a bar, kind of kitty corner from the show there, and then buying drinks for everybody, which really helps get the ball.
That always helps.
Start with alcohol, that was a good thing. And then so that's kind of how the organizational part of that went. And then they had, I think, about a half an hour or so between classes, and they could go back to this common area and get something to drink or something to eat, because that was all laid out for them. Mm-hmm. We had a couple different things where everybody got invited in, and in one which I thought was pretty cool, all of our editors took a seat up in front and fielded questions from anybody, whatever, and for about an hour or so. And I remember one of the questions in particular, which and the guy had no problem asking it. He said, you guys do tool testing. And we said, we're very proud of it. We've been doing it for a long time. Mm-hmm. And he said, how can I be sure that because you also have advertisers in your magazine, that your tool testing is unbiased? And it was really funny because Bob Hunter is the guy that runs this thing. Mm-hmm. And it looked like he was going to trample people getting over to the microphone so that he could talk. And they spent a lot of time talking about how hard it is to maintain that kind of separation and credibility. I used to do testing for the magazine. And quite a few years ago, we decided that I shouldn't, because I'm being sponsored by people at the shows. Bosch will do it, or a spray company, whatever. And if I were to do any testing that involves some of their products, the concern would be that it would look like there was some bias, which I would never do, but you just don't want that kind of thing.
Even the appearance,
yeah, we generally get people from the surrounding communities in Des Moines, and they do the testing for us. So what we do is we send the parameters to them. They get all the tools and stuff. We send them the parameters about, we want to know about this, and whatever. And then let them do their thing. They send in all of their results. And then, since we're better wordsmiths than others, we rewrite that story then in their specs. And it's worked out really well, so that we can then sit back and say, I don't have to worry about this, because we did not have a direct hand in doing that, other than maybe a little tiny tool. But in the major tool tests for drills and table saws and band saws and all that stuff, that is all farmed out.
Oh, wow.
It's actually pretty cool. And that was a good thing for people to hear. And, it was funny, because they were asking very pointed questions. There were, there were 5, maybe 7 editors sitting up there. The whole thing. And somebody said, so you guys put out a magazine with just you? And they were laughing. And somebody said, well, we don't look like we're capable. But because we're part of Better Homes and Gardens and Meredith and all that stuff, we just have so many different avenues to tap into to do that production kind of stuff, that it makes it not easy, but easier to do it. But that was one of the things that I think people really enjoyed. And I'll tell you, the other thing that was so popular, we brought everybody down to the photo studio on Saturday, I think, after all the classes were over. We set up a high-def camera, and we took everybody's picture, and the following morning they had it superimposed on a magazine cover. Oh, cool. So they all got the picture on Wood Magazine, and some stupid stuff on the front. Wood picks the best woodworker of the century or something. But all of these, and really crisp, very clear, beautiful background and all that kind of stuff. So I think it worked well. We already had people saying, when is it coming back? When are you doing it again? And so I think this will be
good. So it is planned to go again this year, right? Or
it
actually,
is. It's going to be in May. We're going to do it after the first week in May. So this year is May 16 to 18.
Okay.
So 16, 17, 18, and we'll have it out. I think it's in the next issue that's coming out. We'll have the information.
Okay.
I think so. I think that's what it is. Trying to get it out as early as possible. So I think last year, we didn't get it out until, wasn't in the magazine until maybe January that people saw it. Yeah. So it was kind of a quick turnaround. This time it'll be, I think, in early September, maybe mid-September, something. The information will go out. So, but I think it's, everybody was concerned about it. They've never done it before. And trying to think, is the offices that we're doing this in conducive to it? The topics we've got conducive to people signing up, and the educators and all that kind of stuff. And it worked out really well. And we're changing a couple, so there'll always be 2 or 3 new educators in there. So if you go in and you think, oh God, I remember seeing that guy, they'll have somebody else doing something so that you can kind of mix and match.
Yeah. Well, in the topics, I remember. That was a pretty broad range of topics too. I mean, you had finishing and turning and cabinetry. There were quite a few things in there.
We got, they had design classes, and they had, I think they had even, I'm trying to remember whether or not we did a SketchUp thing too. And I'll tell you the turning thing. Brian Simmons did this thing with, he turned a fairly large vessel kind of thing, and he turned the outside, roughed it out. He turned some of the inside, and then he went to the bandsaw and he cut about 1/3 of that outside radius off. When he put it back on the bandsaw, you could literally see, almost like that old kaleidoscopy kind of look, that the chisel actually cutting the inside of that bowl. It was the coolest thing. We posted a video on it, I think a YouTube video on it. Oh, cool. It was. I never saw anything turned from the inside. It's almost like you tried to sneak a camera in there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
He see what he was doing, and he loves to teach that way. And again, he was a guy that did a basic, this is wood, and this is how it attaches to a lathe kind of thing.
Yep.
And then some of the coolest stuff after that had everybody. I think he did off-center turnings. He did a whole bunch of stuff. And so if people wanted to come there and they wanted to learn one particular phase of woodworking for the whole weekend, they had a spot. Or if they wanted to just, I had a couple people, Matt was one, took the whole day of finishing, but then he wanted to go see Mark Adams for cabinet construction. And I think he saw, trying to think of who else he saw for something else. So he kind of mixed and matched all the way through. And I think that made for a great experience for him. And almost everybody kind of took a smattering of things. They didn't kind of stay in one spot the whole weekend.
Cool. Well, even those, I've been doing woodworking for quite a while. I've made quite a few things, but even those, sometimes just the basic, to go back and go over some of the basic stuff, you think of something, you're like, oh, I've done it this long forever. Why didn't I think of that? Duh. Okay, it just, oh yeah, well there you go. Or you're like, oh yeah, I really need to think about that. And then it inspires you to think, hey, well yeah, if I did think about this before, it's another way to look at it. And the whole camaraderie thing, where there's how many people that are there that are doing woodworking, it gets your woodworking juices flowing. You're, oh yeah, what about these things? And it keeps you moving on it.
And the good part with this is too, think about a class like that with some really nice, really good educators that only has 10 or 15 people, maybe 20.
Oh, that's...
And you're asking questions the whole time.
Yep.
Or they're saying, and in each one of these, we had a very large, big screen TV and at least one HD camera on everything. So as they were doing it, even if you sat right in front, you could still look at the screen and see the actual mark he was making or the cut he was doing or whatever. So we had videographers in every one of these, along with the big screen TVs and all that stuff. So it made it pretty nice for the attendees. And again, I got one issue when I was doing the finishing part, and we're doing it in their spray booth, which is belongs to the corporation. It's a huge thing that everybody would love to have in their home.
Yeah.
And you turn on this thing and it's like sucks your shirt off. But the idea was they had these real big bright lights in the back so that the project you were doing was so well illuminated from all these things you could see real well. Well, the only complaint I had from that was a lady took, one of the women that took the class, a real short little lady, and she was so short that the light bulbs were right next to my head all the way through. So afterwards, she said, "Is there any way you could turn those off?" And I said, "Yes." So we were able to kind of adapt all the way through. It actually worked out really well.
Cool. Well, I think doing it in those where the magazine does some of that stuff, their shops, their spray booths. I mean, just being able to go into there for a geek like me, likes that stuff. I'm like, I want to go see where they do this.
Yeah. Well, our main shop, our wood shop was open. They did some things in the wood shop. Right outside the wood shop, which is built right in the middle of the editorial section, are all the editors' desks. And what's fun about it is that there's these big angle glass windows, and they put them in there soundproof and everything, so that even with the machines running, you can still do your work and your thing. Anybody that comes in to visit the magazine, if there's nothing going on in the shop, they take you into the shop. Oh, wow. They don't have any reservations about it all. If there is something going on, they have these huge big glass windows. You feel like a goldfish in a bowl. But they have the big glass windows that you can see in, and then all around that space on the outside are projects that have either been in the magazine or are finished, but have not been photographed yet and have not been published yet. So you get a chance to see what's coming up in the next 2 months, 3 months, maybe a year. It's really cool. And what it did is it gave people a feel for what it takes to make a project.
Oh yeah.
I think everybody that reads something thinks, "Oh shoot, I can do that in 2 days." Well,
and then you try it.
The intelligent people in there are spending days doing it or weeks doing it to play with this and this and this. And I think it gave people a pretty good feel for what was going on. So that was I'm a bit biased, but I just thought it turned out to be a great presentation. It worked really well.
That's great. I look forward to going this year.
You'd love it, and we'll have that drink.
Cool. We'll have to get down there. So I gotta do this. I have a couple of questions that I ask pretty much everybody that I get a chance to talk to, at least the first time I talk to them. One is the one you probably answered before, is how did you end up getting into woodworking in the first place? I am the little, almost like a little sob story on the side. I was the oldest of 7, and my dad died when I was 13. So somebody had to take care of fixing things in the house and doing things in the house. So that was me. And so talk about making mistakes and things, and but if the door got sticky, or there were 7 of us, and most of them were boys, so we ruined pretty much everything in the house, rehanging cabinet doors and fixing
cabinets and doing new plumbing on something else, whatever. So I learned all of those things, and it just seemed I hated plumbing, but I kind of like woodworking. And my dad, when he was still alive, made those little yard signs that keep off the grass, the little cop with the thingy on. That's all he ever did, and he would take weeks to make one of these little signs. But to me, that was just kind of cool, and that's kind of how I got into it. And then this remodeling thing, I think I told you about. I did an awful lot of jack of all trades kind of thing, but I'd be in a house, and before I'd leave, somebody would say that the chair is really wobbly. Can you fix the chair? And I'd say, I'll take it home, and when I come back tomorrow, I'll do it. So then I started doing chairs, and then I was remaking cabinets because the kids broke, and they don't make that cabinet anymore. So you have to make a new one and make it look like the old one. So the longer I did it, the more I kind of got involved in it. And then when this thing came from skill to start doing demonstrations, that was right up my alley.
There you go. So the couple other questions are, so in your shop, what is your, I cannot do without it, this is my absolute most favorite tool ever?
I like most people, probably my table saw, my cabinet saw.
Yeah.
I pretty much have every tool, but I find that I use that an awful lot. And the other thing I actually use quite a bit is the drum sander.
Oh, sure.
Sure. I've got one of those open-ended drum sander things, that 1632 thing. And the nice part is knowing that if I make a drawer that's just a hair tight, and it's at least 6 inches tall or less, I can send it through just a real quick little brush through there, and it's perfect.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. But I think pretty much the table saw. And I'm a big router guy. I love teaching router stuff because I don't think there's anything that you can't do with a router. But table saws just, they do really nice work, and they all these raised panel things, to be able to cut them so perfectly and all that kind of stuff, to me is pretty cool. Because if I don't have that, then I can't go to the router to make the rail and style stuff if I didn't do a good job of sizing up everything else. So that's probably my go-to tool. But I was telling you about working at Sears. My little folding rule with that extension slide, as stupid as that seems, I probably use that more than any other tool in the shop.
I've seen that, I think, at every presentation that I've seen you do.
and I'm old, but I used to actually make pockets for that dumb thing. But I think I use that probably more than anything. But I think that my go-to tool whenever I'm doing anything is a table saw. That's and of course it's an assembly bench. It's it's everything else too.
It's the dead flat surface, the workhorse, the fine tuning thing. It's between that and the workbench. That's the heart of my shop, right in the middle where it should be.
That's right. I have a big off-feed table, almost a bowling alley kind of off-feed table right behind it, so I can shoot stuff off the back of the table saw onto the tabletop. And I electrified everything, so everything happens in that one spot. So that's probably my center.
Yeah, mine. I got the workbench is my outfeed table. So
yeah, that's what I'm doing too.
So that's awesome. Well, then the other one is, for me, I'm getting better at it, but the nemesis of my shop is my lathe, because you get something just right and then you have a catch and it's done because I break more stuff than I take off of that lathe. So do you have anything in your shop where it's like, I don't know why I have this, or this is what I need to work on using yet? The nemesis of the shop. Do you have one?
Yeah, and it's funny, that lathe is it.
Yep.
My lathe thing is it, and I'm okay as a lathe, but to be honest, I'd probably spend an awful lot of time scraping as opposed to cutting, because I know I can't get a catch when I scrape. But it's something I need to keep working on all the time, and I know it's a master skill. It's the more you do it, the better you get at it. And I've got such great teachers at the show. I mean, they're so patient, and they'll show me this and show me that and all that stuff. I've become really good friends of the Carter people, and they've got a whole bunch of stuff that they do that they said, it's easy. This makes it a whole lot easier. And to be honest, those kind of things. But I'm like you. I'll turn something, and then I'm so close, and I think, I really want to shave this off, and then I get a catch, and I want to just. My favorite expression is just shoot yourself. I take that piece. I usually take that piece though, and I have we burn here. We're in the country, so I'll take it and it goes right into the pit. Because the longer I look at it, the more irritated I become.
I've got a couple of them.
Put another one on and start over again, and then catch that one too. But
I've got a couple of them that I set by the lathe that have like a chunk out of them. and it'll hold like the screws for changing the jaws, stuff like that. And it's just to remind me, yes, you can be that close and
That's
still
right.
screw
That's
it
right.
up.
That's right. Oh yeah. And it's funny because I used to tell people when I was teaching little things like scroll saw and stuff.
Mhm.
Nobody knows if you went outside the line.
Yeah.
And when you're turning something, nobody knows
Nobody
that you
knows.
want it just a little bit shorter, put that flute on just a little bit deep. Nobody knew that.
Yep. In the computer world, my normal job, we call that a design feature.
Yes, exactly.
It's not a
Exactly.
flaw, it's a
Yeah,
feature.
character flaw we don't use. Design features, nice.
Um, so those are the ones I got to make sure I ask everybody. The lathe actually in hopefully within a month or so I'll have a another video. I have a chance to talk with Kelly Bresnahan. He's the main teacher in the Artisan Center in Green Bay, and I had a chance to sit down with him and we went through sharpening the tools, and I have video out on that already, and
Mhm.
that helped me immensely to get them sharpened and repeatedly all the time was the biggest thing. And then we went through spindle work, and that video will be out in a couple months. And then soon I'll go back and he'll try to do the bowl and vessel thing with me, and I pity him already.
But that's you're right in that the if you can get a really nice sharp tool, a lot of the potential problems that you did have go away.
Yeah.
A really sharp chisel doesn't necessarily dig.
Yep.
I mean, it'll shave that material off, but a dull one gives you a nice dig immediately. I mean, it's a catch built in.
Yeah, when it starts to dull, you're like, okay, I need to stop now. And it's so quick to sharpen them.
Yes,
It's not like a plain blade or a carving chisel or something like that where it does take a little bit of time to do it. It's hit it on the grinder and you're done and you're right back to
yes,
turning.
yes.
But
And the shavings are coming out instead of sawdust, which
yes.
is yep, yep.
Well, I want to thank you for your time, and I suppose we can let you get back to the rest of your day, and hopefully we can talk again sometime.
Great. That'd be great. I appreciate this. I appreciate being asked, and it's kind of nice to get a chance to talk to you for a little bit longer than just the few minutes we sometimes get at the show.
Yeah, a little bit here and there, and
Yeah,
some of the off-color funny stuff I post on Facebook.
there's nothing wrong with that. Oh, your stuff is actually very good. It's kind of nice to look at it, and it gives me something to look at each day. So
I try to make I try as the same thing as you said. I try not to take myself too seriously, so I get to laugh.
well, you do. You have to, and I think that all of this stuff is just another part of somebody's personality. The happier person you are will be a happier woodworker. And when you go, I'll go to the shop sometimes and just think this is awesome. I mean, I got one year for Christmas, I got a small refrigerator for my wife as a gift for their shop.
Hmm.
And people said, "Are you nuts?" And I said, "No, you don't understand. This is awesome. You got a coffee pot up there, you've got a little refrigerator up there. This is if there is such a thing as a man cave kind of thing,
Yep.
that would be it.
And
I mean,
that's
this is
mine
good.
too. I've got I was in the garage for a long time, and we moved it into the basement on my wife's idea to move it in,
Mhm.
so that way it's air conditioned in the summer when it's too humid, and it's heated in the winter. And I'm like, this is the best thing I ever did.
And just the idea, when you're done, I love it when somebody comes over and the projects that you're doing are, that I do, are not awesome or anything, and somebody will come over and they just go nuts over it. I think, oh, that's really nice. And then I'll say, which is fun, well, just take it. Go ahead.
Hmm. Yeah, it feels
Because
good.
it does, and it's just that's part of this. And again, those are things that if I were selling it and somebody said, well, will you take $15 for it? That hurts.
Yeah.
Somebody's beginning to judge your or putting a price on your ability, which I think is tough for anybody.
Hmm.
In our business, if you want to call it that, we're not making anything for anybody for money. We're doing it because they want it, they need it, or we just wanted to make a gift. They're so excited.
Yeah.
That's all the pay that's worth. It is. And I believe in a little positive karma. I think it comes back.
Well, good. Well, I think I'm gonna actually go down in my shop. I've been working on trying to learn to carve, and my gnome actually looks like a gnome, so I'm gonna see if I can finish his feet tonight. So,
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so
well,
much. I really,
thank you very
really
much for your time, Jim. You have a good day.
excellent. We'll see you in Milwaukee.
Yes, we will. Thanks again.
Good night.